Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean. I will be your doctor, and today we will be diagnosing yet another problem in the news coverage as it relates to the Banko Brown incident. Now, before I get into this, I just want to point out that I have no idea what this person's gender and or sex is, and the reason why is because different varying news articles and different people who claim to know this Banko Brown person identify Banko Brown as either a woman or as either a man. I have no clue what the sex of the woman or the man is. My guess is, based on the earlier reporting, it seems to skew towards labeling this person a female, and since they died as a result of this and weren't around to express this person's gender identity, that would be my guess on where this is actually at, but I have no clue. So YouTube gods, YouTube overlords, please, for the love of God, do not restrict me, do not demonetize me, just because I have no clue. I'm sorry. You know, this channel is often defined as the most progressive channel on the internet.com, so we always, and I mean always, try to respect the pronouns, because the pronouns are more important than anything in our society at any point in time. Honestly, I think pronouns should be a constitutional amendment, probably replace the First Amendment, making that the Second Amendment, and then we rewrite the First Amendment just to respect the pronouns. But yeah, that's my take on this. You can let me know the answer down in the comments, but I have no clue, and that's really not the important part of the story, although I think some of the anger and vitriol from the general public is possibly based in the idea that maybe this is the transit situation. Now, Banko Brown was stealing from a Walgreens. Allegedly, never was convicted, but let's be honest, Banko was stealing from the Walgreens. At which point in time, the security guard for this Walgreens confronted Banko Brown based on the theft. There was some sort of altercation, and Banko Brown ended up being shot and was killed in this instance. Now, the police arrived on the scene, saw a dead criminal on the ground and a law-abiding security guard, and decided that they needed to make an arrest. So initially, the security guard in this instance, who I believe is a black person based on his name, although I don't see any photos, but I'm also thinking one of the reasons why this isn't international news is because it's a black person, was held under suspicion of murder by the local San Francisco district attorney. And by the way, if you think elections don't matter, if you think recall elections don't matter, just remember Chesa Boudin is not in this position anymore, and Chesa Boudin would have likely completely sided with the criminal and probably pursued the death penalty against the security guard, regardless of the fact on whether or not this shooting was justified. So that is the story as we originally saw it a couple of days ago.
Candles, notes, and hugs. We're learning more about the person shot at a Walgreens in San Francisco. Good evening, I'm Amma Dates.
And I'm Dan Ashley. Thank you for joining us. A vigil took place tonight outside the Walgreens where the 24-year-old victim was shot last night.
The store security guard is under arrest and is accused of murder.
Now, one of the things I absolutely hate about this news coverage, but it goes to how the narrative is set, even though, again, typically security guards don't shoot people in their stores for absolutely no reason, yet the local news is labeling this person the victim of the crime. They're talking about the arrest, which is true, factual, we all understand that, but this person is being labeled the victim, even though, again, it would seem rather odd for a security guard for no reason to just murder somebody who is stealing from the store.
Is accused of murder. ABC 7 News reporter Lena Howland is hearing how the victim was involved in the community.
As layers of candles, flowers, and balloons sit outside of Walgreens on Market and 4th Street, friends mourned the person they knew as Banko Brown, who was shot inside the store Thursday.
Now, I know I'm harping a lot on the framing, but it is incredibly important because this leads into the hysteria surrounding this incident, because when you actually break down the facts of the case, which, by the way, are not outlined in any of these news reports that I'm going to cover, even the ones after the district attorney announced her decision on this issue, you realize that all of this is being done in order to victimize this person, make them ultra sympathetic, and this is why we're hearing about their role in the community, because wow, this person who is stealing from the community, who is part of the reason why Walgreens and all these different different pharmacies in this area and all these different retail stores in this area are going out of business, thus driving the community into poverty, was actually somebody who was quite considerate of the community, you know, when they weren't stealing from the community and ruining the community and driving the community into poverty.
Banko was loved by many, many people.
Julia Arroyo is the co-executive director of the Young Women's Freedom Center, a leadership and advocacy organization that works with people that have navigated violence and poverty. Arroyo said Brown had been involved with the organization since they were just 12 years old and was currently serving as a community organizing intern.
Wow, do you guys hear that? Banko Brown worked with this women's freedom organization to deal with women that happen to be dealing with violence, and Banko Brown was a part of this organization since 12 years old. Such a pillar of the community, and I can't believe that this 100% justified shooting actually ended up happening, even though it is 100% on Banko Brown and the actions taken during the course of this shoplifting turned armed robbery. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm spoiling it a little bit for you. And wow, just such a stunning and brave person.
He did participatory action research, so he collected data and surveys in the streets, assessing the needs of folks during the pandemic. He reached my heart. He really did reach my heart. He was so funny. He was so funny. He was incredibly shy, and he was bold too. He was bold, and he knew what he was striving for.
Now again, this is where we get into confusion in terms of the gender and or sex. That's why I'm trying not to focus on it. But we have people who are friends saying boy, but we also have people who are family that are saying girl, and other local news agencies referring to this person as female. So I don't want to get too much into it, but yeah, this is where I am in terms of confusion. But now we're going to hear the sad tale of Banko Brown.
But outside of work, Arroyo says Brown was dealing with their own struggles. She says Brown had been couch surfing while waiting on permanent housing.
One of my last conversations with him is that he was in search of what home was.
Police say the suspected shooter, 33-year-old Michael Earl Wayne Anthony, was a private in-store security guard for Walgreens. He's since been booked on homicide charges. But details about what happened inside the store are still unclear.
Well, that's how the call came out. The call came out, it was a shoplifter.
Now, again, this is being covered by the local news as a shoplifting incident, and as we talked about previously on this channel, you're not actually allowed to use deadly force in order to deal with somebody who is just shoplifting. However, the local news at this point in time, to give them the benefit of the doubt, does not seem to know the circumstances of this case at this moment, and right now the police are still assessing it, so they arrested the security guard and booked the security guard on homicide charges, even though the investigation is going through. But one of the things that I find absolutely disgusting is that we have a co-conspirator, a fellow robber in this instance, that is given camera time to lie directly to the audience. But I want you to know what the criminals think should be the policies in terms of stores.
San Francisco police say security guards can be armed with guns depending on the situation. Brown's cousin, who was also at the Walgreens, says this was avoidable.
I just feel like guns shouldn't be allowed. Like, security-wise, if you're not law enforcement, like police, you shouldn't have a gun, because stuff like this happens off of little stuff. Nobody's life is worth something being stole from a store.
So here you have the cousin saying, oh, I was there, by the way, and she basically admits that the theft was going on, and she says, unless you're police, you shouldn't have a gun. Nobody's life is worth being something stole over a store. But here's the thing, as I'm going to spoil for you right now in this moment, what we ended up finding out is the security guard did not confront Banko Brown with a firearm in hand initially. What actually happened was Banko Brown was spotted shoplifting with the cousin, obvious thievery going on here. The security guard went to intervene, and in response to the security guard intervening, Banko Brown, and again, this is according to the district attorney's statement that seems to be ignored even by the follow-up segments from the local news explaining why the charges were dropped, drew a knife on the security guard, but the security guard did not pull the trigger at the moment when the knife was presented. The security guard, according to the surveillance video, according to the other witnesses, according to the evidence as reviewed by this left-wing district attorney, not as left-wing as Chesapeake, but still pretty left-wing district attorney, did not fire upon Banko Brown until Banko decided to lunge at the security guard with the knife. So when we hear the cousin talk about how nobody's life lives should be taken over small amounts of items, I just want to point out that Banko Brown was threatening deadly force over the items that Banko Brown was stealing from Walgreens, and but for the security guard being armed, likely the person who would have died would have been the person trying to earn an honest living, trying to stop the decay of the city of San Francisco, trying to actually maintain a Walgreens because so many have closed in this area, and Banko Brown was trying to make sure that wasn't the case. Banko Brown was trying to rip a 33-year-old security guard away from his family, away from his friends, away from his loved ones, all for the merchandise, and we have the cousin looking into the camera, glad she has sunglasses on because we know how sketchy she would be looking around in all these different directions as she's lying to the press and saying nobody's life is worth that stuff. What she's actually saying is you don't have to have guns because you should let us steal from you, and our lives aren't worth that stuff, but your lives, because you decided to take a job to stop thieves like me and my cousin, those are totally worth the stuff that we're trying to steal.
Tonight, did that Walgreens security guard go too far? Last week, he was arrested and accused of murdering a shoplifter. Tonight, released from custody.
District Attorney Brooke Jenkins tells us she is not pressing charges. We bring in Audrey Assistio with the late details.
Raj and Jess, District Attorney Jenkins told us tonight that after reviewing all the evidence, her office wouldn't be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury that the security guard is guilty of a crime.
Now again, the key piece of information, the core of the story, is the knife and Banko Brown lunging at the security guard, thus presenting a deadly threat, thus being the reason why Banko Brown was shot and killed in self-defense by the security guard. Yet, we're into this new segment, the updated segment, when all of this information is available, and the local news is saying, well, the prosecutor said she wouldn't be able to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. I guess it's one of those toss-up cases. We have no idea whether or not it's self-defense. We can't determine that. What is discernment? What is moral clarity? What even is judgment? The prosecutor just says, wouldn't be able to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, so throw our hands up and pretend like there's not clear and obvious evidence on one side of this issue, and that we don't have a criminal who is willing to kill a security guard over whatever this criminal was stealing from the Walgreens.
I truly understand, and I all I can do is reassure them that we have done everything that we believe is right according to the law in this case.
Now, they put out a clip of the prosecutor's statement, and to be clear, the prosecution made the correct decision right here. But one of the things I absolutely cannot stand is the fact that in a democratic city, in a progressive city, in a slam dunk, clear and obvious case of self-defense that is overwhelmingly supported by the evidence, it sounds like she's apologizing for not punishing an innocent person based on a criminal who is not only trying to commit shoplifting, but escalated it into an armed robbery and was potentially willing to maim and or murder a security guard in order to get away with the goods that she had illegitimately stolen.
Say his name! The release of the private security guard, 33-year-old Michael Earl Wayne Anthony, comes just hours after a memorial was held today for 24-year-old China Brown, known to family and friends as Banko. Tonight, they're demanding justice.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! I bear. I feel your pain.
Now again, we're getting chants of say his name and all these people crowding around the Walgreens, yet there is no acknowledgement from what I can see that Banko Brown was in the wrong. In fact, I joke about this all the time, but members of this crowd are actually going with the Banko Brown is Aladdin. Remember, in the original news segment, and this is done across news stations, they talked about how poor Banko Brown was couch surfing at the time. They trotted out the cousin to say, oh, people, private security with guns, that's absolutely horrible. Nobody's life is worth the items in the store, so let Banko Brown stab you to death over the items in the store. You shouldn't be able to defend yourself. And now we have this guy talking about how he hurts, and it's very dramatic. They're all crowding around. Again, wouldn't be surprised if this Walgreens ended up shutting down, not only because of the theft, but now because of the mob that's out in front of it, all over somebody who attempted to murder a member of the community, an upstanding, productive murder of that community.
This is an example of multiple failures, not just this corporation.
Yeah, the corporation didn't fail. The only people who failed is everybody out there in the crowd is the city of San Francisco for allowing shoplifting to run so rampant that people actually feel entitled to steal from Walgreens, and of course, Banko Brown for trying to kill somebody over being confronted by a security guard because Banko Brown felt entitled to steal whatever Banko Brown wanted.
The crowd and growing memorial surrounded the front of the Walgreens store on Market Street in San Francisco this afternoon. This is where private security guard Anthony allegedly shot and killed Banko Thursday evening. Citing a preliminary investigation, police say a theft occurred during the incident, but didn't provide further information.
People are absolute trash. A growing memorial for somebody who tried to murder a security guard with a knife, a security guard who showed unbelievable restraint according to all the documents that I could see from the prosecution, who were looking to charge this person, by the way, and yet we have a candlelight vigil, activists, and a growing crowd. More people are out there than there were 3 days ago when the case was more ambiguous, and now that we know for sure that Banko Brown was in the wrong.
It's never easy to have to come to a conclusion that you can't provide the form of justice that a family wants in these types of cases. It's something that we take very seriously. And this was a very tough situation and a tough conclusion to arrive at. But I have an obligation to make sure that we only charge people that we truly believe legally we can prove their guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. And I have to let that standard govern every decision that I make, even when my heart pours out for a family.
If you're in the city of San Francisco, get out of the city of San Francisco. Move away. Listen to what the district attorney just said there. She said she cares so hard about how the family and the community feels about Banko Brown that she just wishes that she could charge this security guard who, by her own office's admission, was 100% justified and only fired upon Banko Brown when Banko presented a deadly threat and then advanced on the security guard, but she just can't do it. But really, honestly, genuinely, if she could figure out a way to string up the innocent man who defended his life against a criminal, then she would definitely be in there, and she's with you in spirit. But maybe if you change the law to basically make self-defense completely illegal, to basically grant people like Banko Brown the god-tier rights to steal from any corporation or any business that they deserve according to you, then maybe next time we'll be able to sentence this law-abiding citizen, this security guard who is earning an honest living, to the death penalty. I mean, we don't use the death penalty for serious violent criminals, repeat offenders, or anything like that, but I think people who try to defend themselves when they're being attacked with a knife, those people should probably get the death penalty according to this woman.
Brown's mother addressed the crowd outside Walgreens, saying the death of her child is unjust and unfair.
I'm gonna say it again. If she was hungry, it does not justify her being killed. It does not justify her being killed.
Now listen, I understand and I'm very sympathetic to grieving families. And by the way, because I am of the belief right now, and I will look for an image if available, that the security guard is a black man, this is not a race issue, although if it were, we would see international media coverage for this. But the thing is, the mother's wrong. Even though I'm sympathetic, even though I understand that the mother is upset about the loss of her child, in reality, when you're trying to stab a security guard, it doesn't matter if you're hungry. When you're trying to murder another person, it does not matter. When you're trying to steal, you don't get to steal just because you're down on your luck, just because you're short on money. And if you're the mother and you want to provide food for your child, then maybe you should think about that rather than trying to blame the Walgreens for not being a substitute mother for your 24-year-old adult attempted murderer criminal who ended up being killed based on the actions that were taken by them. I'm so tired of the madness that goes on in favor of the criminals. This ain't a civil rights movement. There's nothing noble about stealing from your community. There's nothing honorable about stealing the breads from Walgreens, and the lies and the doubling down and the local media immediately assuming that the business and the law-abiding citizen is in the wrong, I've had enough of. And them cutting out the prosecutor who's soft on crime, soft on this issue, giving the key piece of information and the threat to the life of the person who is actually working a legitimate job also really annoys me. But that's where we're at in terms of San Francisco. Looks like you're going to be losing some more businesses, so congratulations on that. But hey, those are just my thoughts, so let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like. You could subscribe for more content. You could follow me on all my social media. You could support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the San Francisco thief turned attempted murderer getting shot. Till next time.